What's going on, everybody? Josh Callaway here with AllSooners alongside by John Hoover, Ross Lovelace at AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. We're back. Big 12 Media Days, the unofficial kickoff of football season. It feels like you turn a corner when you're here. I love Big
Summer's over.
It's over. We were in Omaha like 2 weeks ago, and now we're just right on to football. Where did the summer go? Football is upon us. The season opener will be before you know it. Big 12 Media Days feels like the start of football, and it was nice to get things rolling today on a new season. A lot has changed since the last time we were here. When we did this last summer, a different world from a year ago. That was pre-realignment, pre-NIL being, obviously in the full force. So much has changed since then. Lincoln Riley's not at Oklahoma anymore. Coaches changes. A lot has happened. But one of the biggest changes, at least for Big 12, new commish. Bob Bowlesby is done. He kind of gave his farewell today. Insert Brett Yomark, the new commissioner here. Very different guy than Bob Bowlesby. What are some initial impressions here from getting to hear the new guy for the first time?
Yeah, yesterday I wrote the Big 12 primer, Big 12 Media Days primer, and I said Bob Bowlesby might show up just long enough to walk in and drop the mic for his legacy as Big 12, and that's kind of what he did. He's like, thank you for welcoming me one more time. I'm out of here after this. He passed the torch, metaphorically speaking, to Brett Yomark. I was surprised, as I think a lot of us were, by Brett Yomark's hire. Rock Nation. Okay, first of all, are we sure that's Rock Nation? What exactly is that? Is that a wrestling thing? No, it's Jay-Z and his situation. So a little bit of surprise just with the personnel, the hire itself. Dr. Linda Livingstone from Baylor, president of Baylor, was here to help him transition. But I thought he did pretty well answering the questions that were asked of him as best he could. A couple of times he seemed a little out of his depth, which you would expect, because why? His first official day on the job is August 1st.
He reminded us many times.
Yes. He had a nice little fallback there.
Yes.
Anything got a little tough.
I'm not starting until next month. But that was something he said. There's not a plan. Hey, you want the Big 12 to be operating from a position of power? Yeah, we do, but there's not really a plan yet. Okay, that was kind of surprising. But he said the Big 12 is open for business, his words, and they're going to be, I think, pretty aggressive. If I read his body language and his words correctly, they're going to be pretty aggressive in trying to expand.
Yeah, and on that aggressiveness, it has to be, a good feeling if you're a Big 12 team, a current Big 12 team that's not jumping conferences, seeing that they are pursuing other teams with aggression, and they do want to stay in that relevant conversation in the college football world.
Yeah, my biggest takeaway, again, just not very Bob Bowlesby. They're different guys.
Exactly.
He said he wanted to make the Big 12 younger and hipper, and I was like,
he hasn't tweeted in 3 years. Get your butt on Twitter, and then you can start getting hipper.
He does have a twin, which people got confused about on Twitter, and they were in a band together. He was a drummer. We learned a lot about Mr. Yomark today, so going to continue to learn about him more. And like we joked about, he reminded us many times, doesn't start until August, so he's still kind of feeling it out a little bit. Didn't roll anything out. He was kind of the first time you really didn't hear the company line of OU and Texas are here till 25. He was a lot more open about them potentially leaving earlier if it made sense for the conference, which is what he kind of kept saying. So that's very interesting. And we'll continue to follow up with him over the next year or so, and next media days maybe. I don't know. We'll find out. Obviously, where Oklahoma's playing football by this time next year. Now, one of the big talking points today.
Speaking of which,
obviously, again, when we did Big 12 Media Days last year, that was 8 days, according to Bob Bowlesby's count, before Oklahoma and Texas moved to the SEC was announced. There's been a lot of hurt feelings since then, probably no more so than from Oklahoma State. The future of Bedlam remains in peril, and it seems like there's been some slight optimism that the game could continue into the SEC for Oklahoma. Man, Mike Gundy and Oklahoma State didn't sound like it at all today. Yeah. It was spicy from the Pokes.
He cut it off immediately. Bedlam, the future of Bedlam is 1 to 2 more years, and he said that's due to somebody else's decision making.
Yeah,
talking about Oklahoma, Joe Castiglione, Joe Harris, and others at Texas, obviously. I was fascinated by that. I wanted him to expound on it, and he did in the breakout session after the press conference. He talked about, hey, we're scheduled up. We're under contract with a lot of these non-conference schools through 32, 33, so they don't have a lot of flexibility to just say, okay, Oklahoma, we like you. We always had a lot of good games. Let's go ahead and keep you on the schedule. I think it's a little more complex than that.
Yeah, and that continued. It wasn't just Gundy. The players, Spencer Sanders, that kept going into the breakout sessions.
Brennan Presley, too. I think that there was a sense of, it's kind of over at this point. And he mentioned in the breakout session, it's history. He said it multiple times. And we learned today, I mean, he's a huge fan of tradition, obviously. And so it definitely hurts him probably to see this go. But I thought it was interesting. He did mention that the non-conference games are going to start to carry a lot more weight if they do go towards super conferences. If that's where they do go, I wonder if Oklahoma State is more open to that in the future when non-conference games contracts are broken up and, they have to add a quality opponent maybe for their postseason chances.
Sure. Yeah. Gundy actually said later on, this was something, he said, I don't know why they're here. He said, I don't know why Oklahoma and Texas are here. If it were me, if I were the conference commissioner, or if I could talk to the new conference commissioner, I wouldn't let them in. He said, if I was a competing cell phone company, you wouldn't let a guy who's leaving your cell phone company continue to come to meetings. He said, that's what's happening with Oklahoma. Now, he half-jokingly said it, but he was serious.
Yeah, no.
What are they doing here? This is a Big 12.
Mike Gundy came to lay it out there today. He was very willing to speak up today. It was fun. He's always very loose at this thing, but
I also asked him
even more so
if his relationship with his brother Cale was going to change after they no longer played Oklahoma every year. AllSooners.com. I'll write about that later on.
Yeah, phenomenal little anecdote about Cale Gundy getting a beer with no issue glass on it.
So good.
Look into that. It was fantastic. So Oklahoma State, they were spicy. We also could hear from 4 other Big 12 teams today. We'll get the other half of the league tomorrow. Obviously, Oklahoma is tomorrow as well as Texas. They get bumped today, too. You go to the SEC, you get bumped today, too. So we had Baylor today, Dave Aranda. We had Kansas State and Chris Kleiman. West Virginia and Neil Brown. And then Kansas and Lance Leopold.
They made it.
They made it this time. We didn't have a weird Zoom on the big screen thing.
Flight was not delayed.
That was really weird last year. It was good that Lance and KU players were able to be here this time. What stuck out from the other 4 teams? Also, we'll get the rest of the conference tomorrow, but anything else that caught your eye from today?
The thing about the Big 12 this year is there's 3 new coaches, as I mentioned in the Big 12 primer. One of those new coaches is Brent Venables, and so there were some questions today about, hey, what kind of coach do you think Venables is going to be? What kind of coach, what kind of job do you think he's going to do at Oklahoma as a first-time head coach? First time in his life, head coach, right? Dave Aranda, for instance, got the question from Eric Bailey, Tulsa World, and he said that he likes Brent Venables, thinks he's a great coach, an outstanding defensive mind. He said, the thing about Brent Venables, he's not afraid to gamble.
Right.
When it was Iowa State who kind of brought that, John Heacock and the defensive coordinator, Matt Campbell at Iowa State, they brought that 3-3-5 out and kind of, the rush 3, drop 8, right? That confused Lincoln Riley, confused Baker Mayfield back in 17, confused everybody. Nobody knew how to deal with that defense. Dave Aranda said he looked at it and said, we should probably run that. We should probably try running some version of that. Nah, I'm too scared. I don't want to do it. But then the football season started, and that's exactly what Clemson was doing. Brent Venables said, I like that. I'm going to run it. So a guy that's not afraid to take risks, a guy that's not afraid to look at assess the landscape and say, we can do what they're doing.
Yeah, Dave Aranda, one of the more slick guys. You don't really know which way he's going to take your question.
Yeah.
He's fun to talk to. He's very similar to Brent Venables, but also very different at the same time. You just don't really know what tangent you're going to get off to. He's an interesting guy. I love hearing Aranda talk. What about you, Ross?
Yeah, I was really impressed with Adrian Martinez from Kansas State. Not only how he spoke, but how his teammates spoke about him too. I feel like he brings a totally different dimension to the Kansas State offense. And listening to some of their defensive players, the question was asked, what was the point in the spring where you guys were like, okay, we can compete? And he said, Green, their linebacker, he said right when he stepped on the field, because he was injured for the beginning part of spring, and he said right when he stepped on the field and I saw him and Deuce Vaughn together, I knew that we were going to be special. And so I really think that they have some dark horse potential just based off of his experience and his running ability. He actually said after every single practice he challenges the wide receivers to a race, and I don't think that Oklahoma will be too happy about seeing a quarterback at Kansas State that can beat a wide receiver in a race.
Yeah, no kidding. And Kansas State, they're kind of the darlings right now. Led the Big 12 in all Big 12 selections in the preseason. Kansas State.
Very interesting.
It's wild. And yeah, Adrian Martinez kind of they're Dylan Gabriel in a way. I mean, they transfer him in. He's immediately at media days. Transfer quarterback coming right in. Looks like all the potential to be a captain, that kind of thing. So it's going to be very interesting. Chris Kleiman talked about how he loved just how much football he played. We were looking to pour. We wanted an experienced guy. They got it in Adrian Martinez, and he'll be coming to Norman for the second straight year, obviously, after coming with Nebraska last year. So that'll do it for those teams in day 1. Day 2 tomorrow, Oklahoma will go, Texas will go, along with the other new coaches, Joe McGuire, Texas Tech, and obviously Sonny Dykes with TCU. Matt Campbell, of course, Iowa State as well, rounding it out. What are some things we're looking forward to tomorrow? Obviously, Oklahoma gets to go. First time Brent Venables being here. I don't know how they're going to keep him to 20 minutes.
How many questions does Brent Venables get in 20 minutes?
Over-under is 2.5.
2.5.
Gotta be.
I'm going to go 3. I'm going to go over on that
slightly over. You're sweating it out, though.
No, it's going to be. I think they've worked with them. I think, first of all, we appreciate the enthusiasm and the constant flow of information from Brent. But, yeah, no, if you've got, what would you say, 300 people here with their hand up raising a question, trying to get a question in?
Yeah.
Got to get those questions
Coach of Oklahoma. He's going to be in demand.
Yes.
There's not going to be, a couple of coaches today, you kind of just run out of time.
Right.
That's not going to happen with Brent. A couple of times where it's like, just
any more questions for Coach?
There's no more questions. Okay, you're free to go. That's not going to happen with Brent Venables.
Yeah, I'm interested to see Iowa State too, and hear from Matt Campbell just on their roster rehaul and kind of like the first rebuild they've had in some time, because they've had this class coming up, and now a lot of guys are in the NFL. They still have a few pieces to build on, but I really am not sure what direction they're going in this season, and so I'm really interested to hear Matt Campbell's thoughts on the progress for the young guys this offseason.
Absolutely. I'm just always looking forward to the new guys. And I'm always, when we're coming to media days, I'm circling like, okay, who's new? And Sonny Dykes, Joey McGuire, obviously Venables. We've heard from him all spring. It is going to be cool to see him in this setting, get introduced to all these media that don't know him very well. And of course, like I said, McGuire and Dykes, the new guys, you're kind of seeing what they're like. Looking forward to that. So that'll be day 2 of Big 12 Media Days tomorrow. It was a jam-packed day 1. AllSooners.com has got loads of coverage there for you. Tons of stuff from today. Stories from every single press conference and then some. And we're going to have just as much, actually way more, obviously, probably tomorrow with Oklahoma and Brent Venables and all these guys going, Dylan Gabriel and what have you. So a lot more coverage is coming up, but there's a lot there for you already on AllSooners.com, so be sure to check it out. YouTube is back. There's a zillion videos on there, so check that out. Tons for you from Big 12 Media Days, day 1. We're going to be back again doing it for day 2 tomorrow. So for Ross Lovelace and John Hoover, I'm Josh Callaway. We'll catch you guys tomorrow back here at AT&T Stadium in Arlington.